Hello, this is the production studio. All right.
Try again.
Yep. All right, so this is our milestone review for production studio. This is our second milestone of the summer semester. So we're going to kick it off with a lot of excitement this time around. I just want to give an acknowledgement to all of our online contributors, along with all of the outside contributors that we have. Without you guys, we would definitely not get as much done. So thank you very much. So other than that, I'd like to hit it off with our first group that we have, which is Gray Area.
Thank you guys for that warm welcome. Hi, I'm Jacqueline. I am the lead on Gray Area. So last semester we worked a lot on the crash site and we got the a bit of a Fatuian and the objectives and got our AI working again. And we got all our objectives for the ranch and the crash planned out and all that. But this sprint, we decided to go in a little bit of a different direction because something felt really off. Our game didn't really feel fun, and it honestly felt like what we were working on didn't really line up with the vision that Doug and Daryl were telling us. So we sat down together and we figured out how to realign and picked a direction to start heading in, which is the newbie stage, which is 3 parts, an abduction mission, an recon mission, and then the crash site that had been worked on in the past. The abduction scene is going to be the player comes to this house in Iowa because they are looking for reptilian influence. The commander gives you the mission while you're going around doing normal things that an alien does, such as making crop circles and looking at cows and things like that. At the abduction site, the first thing you have to do is enter the house. You need to go in there and sneak around and or use your mega ultra superpowers to get in there and find your target. You can also look at things in the house to gather more evidence as an optional. Also, if you do happen to get caught by his family, so the main thing is you're going after this one guy. He has a wife and a kid. If they see you, you do have to go in and alter their memories, or you could have some consequences in the future. So, we worked a lot on getting the new level set up, which was actually I'm gonna go back. Which is some of this is white boxing. We'll show you a bit more later. We also worked extensively on our menus. I spent a really long time working with a few of our artists. Brandon and Jonathan, to get the design out and working. So this is what we came up with. We also had an awesome programmer, Norman, who worked really hard on getting the inventory functional, so I'm really proud of that. So these are the top one is our brain apps. This is where you kind of organize your abilities visually, and to the right of that is your inventory, where when you get them, it's where they'll show up, and then you can drag them over into the hexes. We also have Greg, our AI. This is our current AI for the white box. He currently just patrols around the house doing people stuff. He hangs out in the parlor. He walks around the house a bit. If he sees you, he will chase you. And also you can mesmerize him. So on the left here you have Greg in his mesmerized state. We've shown that visually to the player by turning him purple right now. We hope to get a particle effect in there later. And then Greg in his regular state is red. And then we also have Fido, which is a dog who is outside the house. He spends most of his time out there playing, chasing things, sleeping. So you do have to sneak by him to get into the house later. We also have our animations that we worked on. Brenda did a really great job getting these fixed and polished so we can get them into our build. We also, animations. What is happening? Okay, woo. We also worked a lot on art. So our artists, Jonathan, Christian, and Brandon, as well as Tucker, who is doubling as a programmer artist, worked on a lot of assets for our inside the house and outside of the house. Christian's currently working on getting the just the house in general, whereas Jonathan's working on the interior decorations, things like that. Okay. We are very excited to continue to work on Gray Area, and we can't wait to show you guys what we have after this next sprint. Thank you. Any questions? I think I have a few minutes to take some questions. Yes, Norman.
No, I was spawning loud.
Anybody, please?
Yeah. Yes, Markwood, thank you.
Yes, so you guys were talking about how you didn't find as much fun in the original one and you're looking for, kind of explain a little bit about where you're going with the fun in this new.
Right. So the main thing that was missing from the other one is kind of like the why are we so why can't we do anything? Why does this suck? And it's supposed to suck because you crash landed on Earth, but you never really understood like your powers that you had, like what it's like to be a gray at full power, so you don't really know what you're missing out on. So we want to bring that, like, here's you rocking it as a full-on gray, like abducting people over here, going investigating things over here, telekinesing people across the room, anything you really want, right? You didn't get that, but now with the direction we're heading, you will get that. And then when you get to the crash site, you're like, oh man, this sucks. I need to work to get back to that, which is the direction that we're going.
Awesome.
Yes, Christian.
Speaking of powers, what are the full list of powers that you've either worked on or completed during this sprint?
Yeah, so we have full list. Are awesome. So right now we have disguise. You can scan things, different people, and I want to say organisms, but not like plants, just living creatures, I guess, not plants. So you can,
Mobile creatures.
yeah, so you can scan like the dog, you can scan like the guy that you're abducting if you wanted, you could scan the soldiers in the crash site, and then you go into your inventory and you select it, and then you walk around as that guy. And you do have, there is a balancing to that where we have concentration where you can only do it as long as you can concentrate. And that's just a number range. It slowly drains, and then as you're not doing anything with your psychic abilities, it will recharge. We also have the telekinesis. We do have mesmerism. Thank you, Will. Mesmerism is basically sleeping. You just walk up to them, you mesmerize them, and then they do nothing.
They turn purple.
They turn purple, and they can't hear you or see you. They basically just ignore you while you go get past them or whatever. We are working on getting mind control in. That currently is the input controller for the player will be taken off the player and put onto the AI, so you can walk around and do things as the AI. That's mostly so you can move them to different areas, or like if there's a locked door, you can get them to open it for you. And we thought that'd be a bit more fun than kind of like leading them places. We also have, I think that's pretty much all of them. There's a few more. Oh, the memory thing, yeah. That one we haven't really started working on yet, but we've got the design down. We need to start implementing it where you can alter people's memories. So when you do that, you go into a menu and you have to like select which memories to like switch it out with.
A little
And
mini game.
yeah, I needed to see little like cut scenes of like what the memory is. Yes. That's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. So I'm Kyle Davis. I am the lead for Guardians Legacy. This entire semester, our motto had a focus on working on structure and getting a lot of our overall function in, because we wanted to get feature complete by the end of this semester, which means there's a lot of work to do that we've been working on in the background. Unfortunately, we can't show a lot of it, but we're getting there. One of the main things we've gotten, and this was actually fairly difficult, was getting it to the point you can actually make a skill and then use it in combat. So we have the full loop for our main area that we allow you access to for that. So once I save this whole skill, I can then go and use this in combat, and it is then fully functional. With this, we plan to expound out and start working on our feedback for how our nodes work. So giving information to player about what node does what actually nodes do per tree, explaining out what our system is, and start working on getting a lot more of the individual functionality ready. Along with that, we've also been working on getting a lot of the function for our loading. So we have a circumstantial loading per scene tile. So with that, it allows us to endlessly run if we set up our terrain as is. Obviously, we wouldn't always be doing that. But along with that, we've also been working on getting our spawning for enemies. So this is one of those things where our enemies spawn off radius of the player, and we have a patrol pattern that we can then set for them to then be able to get into combat. Originally, it was just they spawned anywhere outside of a box radius. We wanted to make that a lot smarter so we can then start making design tools around that. This then allowed us to make a lot more features for puzzles, as we wanted to do in the overworld. Along with that, we have a lot of other things going on in the background I can't really show. So I definitely invite you to come by our playtesting, where we can definitely show off a lot more of what we've worked on. But we've also been getting some models and reworking a lot of our textures and starting to try to get our lighting and everything together. So along with that, we also have one of our new models here, which will be our first dungeon that we really work on, which will be our castle. So the door's open right now, but with this, we're going to add in our circumstantial loading, which is, we'll put a door that has a lot of user affordances to allow them to know this is an enterable structure, and with that we can then start translating that along to a lot of our other buildings that are then enterable, so that it starts giving the player a lot more of an idea of where they can navigate and what's going on. Other than that, we've been working on a lot of stuff in the background that is not in build, but that is more things such as working together with mocap animation. So we've been doing a lot of stuff with that and trying to get a lot of the overall functionality complete. So that's most of the stuff we've done. Are there any questions?
So for your combat node system, is it going to change more than just the effects of like abilities, or is it going to actually change the way the abilities look, particle effects, things like that?
Exactly. That's exactly what we want to do. We want it to change if you're using an ice spell, the particle effects are then blue. If you're using it as a drain effect, the particle effect is different than if it would be just a regular damage over time effect. If you're doing status effects, they do different things. Along with that, we're trying to figure out ways to make every skill unique. So we're trying to add little things to every skill. So an ice spell, it usually just ends up doing damage if this was the most basic of what the system is. But we're trying to add layers upon that. So every node has its own unique benefits, and there's reasons to use nodes apart from each other than just, I want a fire element because it does more damage against ice enemies.
How will you get skill parts? Are they something that you level up and get? Do you find them off of dead creatures?
So they are drops from enemies, and also you can circumstantially find them in chests. We're using it as a loot system, sort of like equipment, but it goes along with our equipment system. So what we wanted to do with that was, in our lore, we have it as this whole world was made up of all these crystallized information fragments that give power and can be used for other things. And depending on the size, it changes what you can actually do with them. And skills are some of the median basics to that.
You said they were random. Is there any system you might implement where you might have the player get a chance to purchase a certain skill they might want?
We have been looking into that, and we're planning on tendencing certain nodes to certain types of enemies. So if they have a related skill that does something of that type, they have a higher chance of dropping that one node. And we're going to put this through loot tables where we have an in-game wiki that we do through our monster manual that then shows off all the different loot drops that they can have. And it shows growth as the player because you play as a child, so we're trying to get it to be that you learn as the child learns as he goes through his adventure. Yep. Thank you very much. We invite you out to the playtest. We have a lot more to show that we can't really show with our build as is, and we would definitely love to get your opinions on some of the new systems we're working on. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Kevin Albergard and I am the co-lead for Kill the Rogue. Kill the Rogue is a competitive roguelike where one player focuses on building the roguelike for the roguelike player to traverse. Now, one of the main things we kind of focus on this milestone is how our UI is going to work and how we're going to implement it inside the game, and also a lot of networking. So we also had quite a bit of interesting mock-ups for how we're going to develop this. Now these are some examples of how the UI would look like, and something that we actually did implement in the game itself is the mock-up of the UI inside the systems. Now, what's really interesting about the area where the player is playing inside the dungeon is that the art style is reflective in terms of a 2.5D environment, meaning the player is really in a 3D environment, but is going to be traversing it with 2D pixels or 2D sprites and other 2D environmental pieces as well. So how we kind of pulled that off is having 3D models inside the game that use tile sets from 2D sprites that we placed on 3D models. This will work for all of the enemies and also all of the player assets as well. And just to show off how in-game footage would look like, we're going to show a quick build from our previous build. Our current build is currently having a lot of networking issues with Photon and something we're trying to get fixed and resolved. So I will show you a quick version 1 build that we had, I believe, 3 weeks ago. So this is just a quick example of how movement works in the game, and we also have collisions with 3D objects. For example, the small cube there, the player can actually bump into it, and depending on the height of specific objects, players can walk over things and also get into specific areas. We also have fog of war collision and other things that allow the player to kind of traverse and have different scales with different interactions. And that's pretty much what I have to talk about on what we did from our previous build, but what we had implemented was art and also the DM mechanics working, but again, networking issues with Photon kind of made everything kind of complicated in how it would work. So we're still trying to figure out ways to solve those problems and are attempting to get that ready for the next build. But overall, that is pretty much the presentation. Is there anybody who needs to ask questions? Yes.
So with having a dungeon master and then someone who's calling the dungeon, like what things are you gonna do to really balance it so that like whoever's being dungeon master, whole goal isn't just to troll the person
Yes.
playing, like they actually want to experience it.
So we have a lot of counterbalance and a lot of offensive options for the DM. So neither player will be able to actually stall the game out. So we have, for example, in order for the DM, in order to get any kind of return value in any exchange, they're going to have to place enemies to slow the player down in order to get gold out of rooms. So static cost for rooms would be, for example, 20 gold. And if the player spent 20 gold to purchase a room, they would have to be able to make sure that the rogue's clear time is actually slower than the amount of time they put into the room. So if you put 3 enemies in the room, it would most likely take around 3 to 4 seconds to clear the room, depending on how fast the rogue is. And that will also go into a multiplier, which we have that will dictate how well the player's multiplier is going to be for that gold value. So yeah. Yes.
So, small thing, but for people who don't know or don't play like roguelikes, could you explain the fog of war mechanic?
The which mechanic?
Fog of war.
Fog of war mechanic. So the fog of war mechanic is just a mechanic that makes it to where one player is not going to have vision of a specific room until they've traversed it. So they'll know that there's a room in a specific area, but they won't really know exactly what's inside the room. This is just to give some clarity for the player to know where to go to next, but also not know what's inside the room to prepare for in advance. Any other questions?
Is there also going to be, so you're saying building rooms? Are
Yes.
they preset rooms, or can I create a pit trap?
They are
or
preset
things like
rooms.
that?
We have a list of, I believe, 8 different kinds of preset rooms, and each room will have a soul count depending on how many things you can put inside those rooms. So depending on the type of room you place down, will have a different soul count to put a different type of enemy, and then every enemy has a different amount of soul count that can go inside of a room. So if you have enough souls, you can make multiple versions of higher level enemies. So that promotes late game gameplay and also shortens the amount of game time to around 15 to 20 minutes, which is a range we want to play at.
What is the win condition for the rogue? Is it you attack the dungeon master, or
To
finalize?
clear the dungeon. So one of the main objectives is to just finish the dungeon as fast as possible while the rogue is trying to kill you as fast as possible. Yes.
So why did you choose to do the 2D on 3D models versus just doing 2D tiles?
So we really liked using Unity sprite animations and also those kinds of lighting environmental settings for the levels, and we just thought it would be a really interesting way to incorporate a new unique art style inside that setting. Also, it would kind of be more production for artists to focus on a large production of sprites and recreating sprites. So we have a system where we have 3D models that have animations where we can capture sprites and port them into the game, which is a lot faster for the artists and a lot more interesting and unique for an art style. And that is all. Thank you for asking questions.
Hello everyone, my name is Justin Griffin Clinton, and this is Project Techno. I am project lead and followed by my lovely team of James Goddard, my co-lead, Benjamin Toto, Brandon Hadley, and Isaiah Sanchez as my programmers, Tyler Henson as my designer, me included, and my wonderful artist, Sheila Johnson, who is an online student, and James Matthew Jr., who is a contract worker for our game. Special shout out to Waterfunk, Justin Sheba, and Chad Koki for providing tracks for our game. What is Project Techno? Project Techno is a rhythm racing game that takes a new position on how racing is done. Both the DJ and the racers are blind, and the world seen through echolocation. Over the expanse of a year, which is about the rough estimate of 3 semesters, we've gone through 3 different prototypes. The first one being a rough prototype of how the echolocation works and getting a simple visual representation of what it should be. But it wasn't enough, so we moved on and added more implementation. Featuring the DJ and driver working in tandem. There's a quick mock-up, but this is what I really want to push for. Eventually we made it to green light, and I've amassed a wonderful team that helped me build things like this. Not only is it working and testable build, but we've also pushed further into making a better build, showing off unique gameplay as the DJ produces beats, and the echolocation provides visuals for the driver. But not only have we done that, but we've also worked really hard for the past 6 weeks, and this is what I would have to show for you guys. Starting off, you see James' splash art for the game, which is followed by Chad Koki's music, and a special shout out to him. And it'll lead into Sheila's work and Izzy's loading screen, and it'll take you directly into the game. So once you start the game, the beats start falling, and it's the DJ's job to hit the beats successfully. Not only providing visuals for the driver, but letting them navigate. Now, this is just a straight away road, but in the end, we do have something great for you to show for you guys. As you navigate throughout the level, you see a bunch of sites, cities, and along the way, you'll see the entire visual aspect. So once you reach the end, you'll be transported to a new level, and this is amazing because our designer, Tyler Henson, has worked really hard for the past 6 weeks in providing an entirely new scene that not only encompasses what Project Techno should be, but it also represents the intensity of how the game should play out. Not only has he developed the scene where the city is not only functional and vibrant, but also provides some difficulty for the driver and DJ to cooperate together. Not only will the beat be harder to hit, but the driver will also have to navigate throughout all this rubbish, trash, and barricades to try to navigate and escape the city, essentially. we do appreciate him for all the work because he's made this bustling city that's so close knit, and it really gives off, for me, a Manhattan vibe of closeness. But not only that, this build has also attracted the attention of one of our faculty members, George Portillo, and he's got us in contact with an amazing music engineer named Justin Shiva, and he will be working with us on our future builds, providing music for us and future tracks. Without further ado, thank you for your time. Our builds will be located outside in the Commons, but if you don't have time, you can also catch us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and catch up on our progress. And without further ado, I believe we do have a question.
We do have a couple of questions for you guys. So as you saw, we have the echolocation mechanic. We were just kind of wondering what your guys' take on it was as a cooperative game. How the mechanic would fit into it, if you guys liked it, if it seemed something kind of newish you guys might like to play, or something that you guys were like, maybe we should do something better. Fish?
I think it's a great idea, but I did have a question about like the way the level was mapped out. Is it meant to be like played like pretty slow?
Yeah.
Because like with the echolocation, the way it works, it doesn't look like you'd be able to like really go through that down like zip.
So the echolocation that you saw in there, it does have variables in it, so you can speed up the actual how fast the ring is going out and how fast everything shows up and how long it actually stays lit up for. So if you wanted to try and make the game a little bit faster and have everything lit up a little bit longer for the player so they can go faster, you can do that. If you want to make it a little bit more difficult and have everything very quickly go dark again so the player can't see anything, you could also set it up that way.
Is that set up on a combo multiplier for the DJ? Like the more notes he hits, the faster and the more illuminated it is?
Yes.
Or is it...
Currently, we are working on that. Sadly, we couldn't implement it in this build, but we do have it readily available.
When the players are working together, are they racing against other cars? Or are they racing against a clock? Or are they just trying to make a score?
Eventually, we do want them having racing against other players, but right now, focusing on core functionality is our primary goal.
Is the end goal procedural generation for the level, or is it something that, like, let's say I as a player know the map, so I don't even need the DJ anymore?
The map isn't procedurally generated, but the notes will be. So you may know the map, but depending on the DJ and how well they are to provide a successful echolocation, you may or may not hit your mark. And that's totally dependent upon you as the driver. If you know the level, then it's a bonus additive, but if you think you know the level and you end up crashing and destroying your car, that could be supposed to be a major problem, leaving you to be in dead last.
That was Project Techno. We will be down in the Commons for... Sorry.
Yeah. You gotta look both directions.
Well, they want to wrap it up, so.
Yes.
We'll be down in the Commons. If you have a question, we will be down in the Commons. Come find us.
Not a suggestion, but yeah.
Hello, everyone. Needs to be pointed at you. Forgot about that. Hello, everybody. I'm the project and programming lead for Siphoners, and we are a new title in studio that just started like this semester, and this is our second milestone build. Okay, so we got all of these highlighted buttons connecting to different places, so the settings for the music so you can adjust it, the play button, which I'll go to in a minute, and credit scene with all the people on our team. Okay, so first, what we had before was just a T-pose model for our character here, and now we actually have an idol where she has her hand on her hip, a little bit sassy. There's turning around animations, so kind of like strafe, because we have tank controls, and there's a forward and back animation. Just to make sure the player doesn't get lost, because in this survival horror game, we don't want to give the player a map. We want them to journey and see what's there so that they can, you know, get caught up by like a zombie so that we can laugh at them. But just to make sure they're not completely confused, there's some text right above there so I know where I'm going. That's just exiting out to main menu, and that's the new area that we worked on. So just to show. and it goes back. Alright, so the main thing that I'm going to be showing off is this new area. Right now, the hub world wasn't really our concern in this sprint because we already did it. We didn't really need to go back for now, and the enemies aren't going to be here. This is more of a place for NPCs and picking up quests. But this other area is actually textured. That red wall of death over there is just a setup that we have for keys and doors. So if I bring the right item to that door, it'll recognize it, destroy it from my inventory, and then open the box. But for now, let me show off over here. And that right over there is an example of how one of our quests would work. So in this game, it's going to be mostly like, it's the apocalypse, and we need somebody to go outside and receive supplies and not die and feed the zombies and make more zombies. We need you to go get these supplies, come back so that we can have some more rations to eat, right? So let's say that that's a locked box of food and things that you can't get into. So it's like, okay, I have to go find the key, right? So I'm going to go over, and a good reason why this map has a lot of alleys is because in the future we want to populate it with more enemies and more faster enemies like zombies and werewolves. I'm about to show off zombies right now, and putting them around the corner would scare you. They finally have some animations right now, and once I'm in range, they'll start following me in a really jank way. It's a good animation. We got these from Mixamo. But yeah, once I'm in rage, they'll chase me and make sure to kill me. But right now, I don't want to die for presentation purposes. So I'm gonna go out of their range, and they're just gonna go on back. Oh, where'd he go? All right, so let's forget about those dummies. Let me go pick up the key. And this map is it's from our designers. Thank God for them existing and actually putting in the work for putting in this new level. Let me go around, and the item should be around here. That black box over there. Once I get in range, it's going to destroy itself, and now I have it. Later on, there will be UI to show, like once you press the inventory button, it'll show, oh, you have this key, or it'll pop up, name it, and then you know that you have it. So I'm going to go back to the other supply crate and show you that now once I get in contact with it, it's going to destroy it, and that signifies that, oh, this specific item can actually give me things from this box after you bring the correct required item. Okay, so it's that box over there, the one that we talked about before, and it should destroy itself. Okay, and right now, since there's no visual for inventory, it's just I got the supplies from that crate. I'm going to press P to quit right here, go to credit scene. I'm project lead, like I said before, wonderful designer and co-lead that also does a lot of versatile things and makes sure that everything's done, Darren. My designers that put in the map, programmers, artists, and sound designers. Okay. And the last thing to show, right over here, we actually got icon art for the game. So now it just doesn't look like Unity anymore. And that is a good development because that wasn't even supposed to be high priority, but some specific person put in a lot of work, so I want to give them a shout out. Okay, any questions?
So that red wall, like I noticed that you were able to take a back alleyway and go around it.
Oh, the alleyways are going. They're not going outside of the red wall. The red wall is just encompassing a area that you're in, and if you can bring that key to the red wall over there, then you can get out of the area. Me going around the alley still means that I'm in the same compound. So.
It's like a
yeah, a shortcut around the whole place. That's basically what I was taking for the alleys, because I know where to go.
I was just wondering, with the current iteration of this project, like how is it gonna work with the Arduino? Or if you guys are,
Oh, okay. So thank you for bringing that up. So the main resource that we're going to be managing in the survival horror is going to be light resources. So to emulate that in real life, I put a sensor on a board, and we're going to run the game on that while playing it and send some feedback. So right now, I'm changing up the board. So unfortunately, I can't have it on there because hardware issues. But we are planning out a way to use the current sensor on a Raspberry Pi because that has more support. People know more about that. And then 3D print the case on and send back some feedback from our third-party library that we created by ourselves to get that light value, and then use it in game for things like that. All right, so thank you all for listening, and all the everybody that came out here. Good job, cameraman. And the Rainbow Studio guys too. Thank you for coming out to give us feedback.
Last question. All right, that's the end of our recorded segment for Production Studio. We have a lot more projects to go through, but we wanted to make sure that we held up on every project and what they wished for. And they did not want to be commercialized yet, as they are looking for release in the near future or something equivalent. So, first off, I'd love everyone if you gave a hand to all of yourselves and also all of our online contributors, as always. You guys, as always, make this studio what it is, and your contributions are what keep us alive. So thank you very much. That's the end of the recorded section. And I would like to intro